A&B Properties is Quincy's largest apartment rental company with hundreds of units available. They offer short-term and long-term rentals with 1 up to 4 bedroom apartments. A&B Properties meets the needs of its tenants with care, compassion, and a quality of service that exceeds expectations. A&B Properties also has a convenient tenant app for you to do your payments or make repair requests. Give them a call today. A&B Properties, 217-919-8080, Quincy.
So, like, we could be going right now, or maybe we're not. We don't even know. But I am very happy to announce for this edition of Frankie Say, I have Abigail Genenbacher in front of me from Quincy, Notre Dame. She is a wrestler at Quincy, Notre Dame. Do you also do cross country?
I do cross country, and I'm also in the choir.
Oh, so you do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
How are your grades?
Pretty good, actually.
Really good?
Yeah.
Do you like Notre Dame?
Yes, I like it a lot.
It's a special place.
Yeah.
It's neat.
Yeah.
We've got Coach Adam Steinkamp, Quincy Notre Dame head coach, and also a Dot Foods contributor. And what did your shirt say? It says, Dot, you make a difference. Yeah, we love Dot Foods. You guys want to talk about wrestling for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So at some point in time, Coach, I've got a ton of questions for you because you've taught me a lot of things. One of the reasons why I'm involved in wrestling is partially because of Mansell, partially because of Mark Longo, because Mark Longo told me that I was teeny tiny, small little dude, that if I didn't wrestle, I couldn't play varsity soccer. I wrestled in high school because Longo told me that I had to. Very nicely, respectfully, I'm glad he did. And then Jordan McDonald said, yeah, Frank, you should probably do that. You're like 84 pounds.
Yeah, because we weren't the biggest guys on the soccer field.
No. Which I got to start wrestling as a freshman at Notre Dame, and you started what year?
I started as a sophomore.
But you still made it to state? Or no?
Not technically.
Okay.
I got derailed by an injury. So
You did?
Yep.
Yeah, but you were, okay, so you're a very good wrestler. And the Steinkamps are known, very well known in Quincy, and especially at Q&D, for being tears on the mat. And you guys have truly built youth wrestling. I mean, even the Quincy Cyclones, the Quincy Little Raiders, there's even like kids from Champions that you coached. I mean, you've coached. Let me ask you this. You know that stud, Owen Uppinghouse? Is that his name?
I know Owen very well, yes.
Did you coach him?
I did.
Yeah, you've coached everybody. What can you tell me about this young lady, this Abigail Genenbacher? What can you tell me?
Don't mess with her.
Okay. Why?
She is a fierce competitor. She'll take everything you throw at her. So,
one of the reasons why we have the two of you on here is because I kind of learned a little bit about your story, and it's very impressive to me as somebody who just living in Quincy, just being a normal person who lives in Quincy, who hears about somebody like you. And I'm not going to try to like blow it up in anything that it's not, other than I heard that you wrestled last year.
Yes.
As a junior. What happened last year? Now, this is in the world of female sports, female wrestling. Coach, how big is the sport of female wrestling?
oh, it's growing leaps and bounds. I mean, every year it just gets bigger and bigger.
So, I mean, girls wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, girls sports is already a really big deal, but I heard it's one of the fastest growing sports.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you started last year.
Yes.
What happened last year?
So I joined the team last year with absolutely zero wrestling experience. I joined because one of my friends on the cross country team he was talking to me about it, and he was like, you should do wrestling. And I was very hesitant about it. I was like, I don't know if it's really my thing. But he's like, just come to like a week of open mats. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it anymore, but just show up for a week and just see what happens. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So I came to open mats, and I really liked it. I learned a lot in just a week that I was there. And so then I decided to stick with it and made it through half the season, and then right after Christmas, I got really sick and wasn't able to finish out the rest of the season. Like, anytime I tried to practice, I'd get lightheaded, dizzy, like couldn't do anything. I was super pale all the time. And so I went to the doctor, and they told me that it was best to sit out the rest of the season and just wait until next year. And so then I came back my senior year, very rusty, but I made it through the whole season this time. And yeah.
So, in my opinion, Coach, when I was in high school, we would have some kids try out for wrestling, and they didn't last very long. I'll tell you, I saw one of the Lohmeyers in Champions. I saw them over the weekend, and he was a football player, pretty tough guy, still pretty tough. I don't mess with the Lohmeyers.
No.
But those, like their kid who wrestles as a little, the Lohmeyers have kids that wrestle, and those Lohmeyers are tough too. But I was talking to one of them, and he tried out for wrestling. He was a big football player, sophomore, junior year. And a tough guy like that, I don't know if he finished or not. I know he liked it, but you get people who come and go sometimes. I mean, you've got wrestlers that started when they could walk all the way through, and we can talk about your kids at some point in time, Catherine the Great specifically. What's your opinion on when a kid's in high school, okay? Because we haven't even talked about youth stuff.
No.
You've got two brothers.
Yes, I have two brothers on the Little Raider team.
Named?
Samuel and Benjamin.
Right. And they currently wrestle.
Yes.
And, yeah, tell me.
They're both going to sectionals, pretty sure. And Benjamin is absolutely crazy. He is in fourth grade. I love watching him wrestle. He is so funny to watch. He gets really into it, and I think that he has a real passion for this after only doing it for 2 years, because they both started the same year that I started.
So he's special.
Yes.
He's special.
Yes.
and Samuel too. I'll say Benjamin. They're both going to sectionals, and they're both there because they put themselves in a position. It's kind of things like your brother Samuel. It just so happens he's going to sectionals. Let's play this out. We talk about play this out where you're in high school and you work and work and work and work, and then you win by forfeit. I had like 3 of those. They're wins for me because of what I did. Okay, when you got like your brother who's going to go to sectionals, he trained and trained and trained and trained and trained and trained and trained, and then got his weight where he wants it. He goes and does all the work, travels to Macomb, goes to Macomb High School, and he looks at his bracket. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to sectionals." Right?
Yeah, he was the only kid in his bracket.
Yeah. Well, he's going to sectionals.
Yeah.
If he wouldn't have done all that stuff, he wouldn't be going to sectionals.
Yeah, not at all.
So you see where I'm going with this? It's a special sport. Don't you? It's a special sacred sport. It's the number one sport that was ever created, I believe. I think it's the oldest sport.
It is.
It's the oldest sport. So watching your brothers wrestle, I mean, the Genenbacher family jumps into wrestling. So your mom's here. She's over here in the bright lights. I mean, she's a wrestling mom now. She's been launched face first so, Coach, what is your opinion of if you've got either a kid, 7-year-old, 7th grader, freshman, sophomore in high school, and they want to do something for themselves, and they want to learn something, and they want to make the rest of their life seem easier?
I think Abigail can agree with me on this. It's wrestling is every bit of whatever you put into it, you're going to get back. And the sport itself really it does a great job of just teaching you more about yourself. I mean, the kids that go out there, like you said, even the kids that go out and will get an occasional forfeit, it's all about the training that goes on in the room, working with your teammates. And then if you're going out there for a match, the courage to go and step one-on-one with another opponent, nobody's coming to get you, rescue you, sub you out. Once you're out there, you shake hands, that whistle blows. It's all about how much preparation you put in the sport. So the courage it takes to go out there for each person. It takes a lot. So it really teaches you more about who you are as a person.
Do you think when you look back later on in, 20s, 30s, 40s, however, we're always trying to get to as high of an age number as we can while being healthy, right? Do you think you look back on what you did in high school in wrestling? What do you think you're going to think about that? Are you going to regret it?
No, if anything, I'm going to wish that I would have started wrestling as a freshman or even earlier. Like, I wish that I would have done it sooner, because then, like, by the time that I was a senior, like, I was a second-year senior this year, and I feel like that had I started 2 years earlier, I would have had a lot more experience and more, like, success, and just been, like, overall just better.
Do you remember a few weeks ago? So Q&D had a wrestling tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They had a wrestling tournament on Saturday. It was the high school kids. On Sunday, it was the little kids. Do you remember a time where you're on the floor for one of your brother's matches, and you're kind of in the corner, and you're kind of hiding behind the wall, whatever, and you were cheering your brother on?
Yeah.
Do you remember some of the things that you said? You gave him some advice.
I just kind of was just, like, telling him stuff that he could do, just like I don't remember the exact stuff that I said, but I do.
It was all correct. It was so I'm sitting there, coach. I'm in the chair, okay? And I'm coaching, and I can hear I'm looking at Ben, and I can hear his sister, like, cheering him on and saying, "Grab the wrist. Hip into him. Come on, Ben." And he could hear her. So what a beautiful sport, because wrestling's combat.
Yeah.
And it's one of the hardest sports in the world. And people who play football, I mean, there's times in football where you've got all of the equipment on, the helmet, the pads, and it's 100 degrees outside, and you're feeling claustrophobic inside your helmet, and you really want to drink water, but you've got a lot more work to do. That's really hard. Mm-hmm. Also, the wrestlers inside those pads and those helmets, they're just a little bit more comfortable, I think. So tell me a little bit about this past year. Any trials and tribulations, any problems? Because I really believe that the more that you had, the maybe it's good and bad, right, to have the trials.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you had wins. I know you had losses. We all do. Mm-hmm. But what was something, was there a tournament or a meet or something that happened during practice? Was there ever any light bulbs that went off in the course of the year where you just thought, oh, interesting?
Well, there was one, it was our JV meet at Q&D, and that was the first meet where I had gone the whole, like, day without getting pinned at all.
Okay.
And so I think something that, like, really, like, clicked for me where I realized that I could, like, do something this season was when I was wrestling a kid, I think from West Hancock, and I ended up only losing to him by 1 point.
From West Hancock?
Yeah, it was a JV meet, and I lost 10-9. And I finished the match almost pinning him. I got him in a knockout, and I was, like, getting back points and everything, and, like, it was the third period. I was down by quite a bit, and then I got a reversal, and then I got 3 near fall, and so then I ended up only losing by 1 point, and that was, like, the first, like, that was the closest that I had ever come to winning all season. And
it's a win.
Yeah, like that. You counted, like, even though, like, technically I lost, like, I was still just, like, so happy that I came that close.
See, and I think that's what's really cool about the sport is we call certain things bad wins, good losses. And when you're coming away from a match and you might have hit a move that you've been working on in practice, or in Abigail's case, had she had a few more seconds, I think she could have secured the pin. I think Coach Don Uritis was ready to just come out of that chair. Yeah. He was so excited. Those are good moments, and you have to take those positive moments out of wrestling and build on them. So,
yeah, there's 3 periods in wrestling, but if there's a 4th period, that guy would have had some problems.
Yeah.
You would have taken him. You would have destroyed him. So, can we talk about Coach's family a little bit? We're
Yeah.
gonna kind of talk about. So, Coach has you and Heidi have some kids, both wrestle, and one of is Catherine, and one is Curtis. What is Catherine, your oldest? What is she doing right now?
Well, right now she is wrestling for the women's team in Oskaloosa, Iowa, for William Penn. She's getting ready to make her third trip to Jamestown, North Dakota, in about a week and a half here for the girls' national tournament. She qualified last weekend. So,
And when did she start wrestling?
she started at the age of 8.
I started at 14. You started at
16, 17.
so you're never too old to start. It's what an interesting. You know how you said, "I wish I would have started earlier." I wish I would.
Yeah.
Do you ever look at your brothers and be like, oh, you don't even know how lucky you are?
Yeah. I look at specifically Benjamin, and I know that he's going to have a lot of success in high school if he sticks with it, which I think he will. But I think that he has potential to be, I mean, he's really good now as a second year fourth grader, but I think that he has potential to be really good, like as he gets older and gets more experienced.
Yeah. And I don't like to operationally define what really good means, but I can dream. I can just start like thinking about things. Because, so your brother, Matthew, which by the way, this is kind of funny. So your brother, Matthew, you know how he spells his name with one T?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what happens when you just call him Matt? You don't have to talk about the wrestling Matt the coach. Nobody has any idea what's going on here. So like, I think it's kind of interesting so I call him MAT all the time. And sometimes I won't capitalize it. I don't know if you notice this or not. In like our mass text, sometimes you'll notice I won't capitalize it because I think it's funny. So he is the head coach of the kids club. So, how many kids clubs are there in the area?
Oh,
Like just in the general area. Because let's talk about like how, depending on where you are, because people will hear this podcast in Macomb. They'll hear it in Hannibal. They'll hear it in Camp Point and Mendon and Payson and all over the place. So do you know, Coach, off the top of your head, can we name the kids programs?
just the ones that I can think of right now, probably about 9, just right in the immediate area. You've got, starting in Quincy, you got the Quincy Little Raiders, you got the Quincy Champions, you got Camp Point Central, Palmyra, Hannibal, Canton, Missouri. Then you go up a little bit more north, you've got, West Hancock, Macomb, you got Pittsfield just down the highway. And hopefully there's a few more springing up down the way a little bit. So
I think the QND club, the Notre Dame club, the Little Raiders, I think there's roughly somewhere between 50 and 60 wrestlers in that program. I don't know exactly how many. I think we took 20 to regionals. I mean, we've taken 35 tournaments before, but I think we took around 20 to regionals.
yeah, I think we had 56 rostered. 22 went to regionals,
Or 22.
21,
Okay,
somewhere
yeah.
in that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, so by the way, Champions is another club in Quincy. I don't know how they finished. They're a good club. I do know that the Notre Dame Little Raiders club finished 4th out of 21, I think, in team.
Correct.
So that's not too shabby. What was it? It was 3rd? Champions finished 3rd? Okay. Oh, good for them.
So that's pretty good representation just in this area.
Yeah. Champions. I'm going to give a shout out to True Jones, who wrestles for Champions. I said I would. I told him I would. Shout out to him. So, I mean, I can give a shout out to all of the Little Raiders too, which I am humbly, you have blessed me with allowing to assistant coach. I get to help out Matthew Steinkamp. Brad Humble's in there as an assistant. We've got a really good staff. Some more questions for Abigail. Do you care if I just like fire questions?
No, I don't.
Just fire questions.
Yeah.
So what do you think, you're going to do next year? And to me, I'll just, like, before you answer, I have no idea. It's none of my business, first of all. You don't even have to answer that. You can kick me under the table. But I mean, you're either going to go wrestle and like be an Olympic champion, or you're not going to wrestle at all. Somewhere in between. Because I'll tell you right now, I did not wrestle in college. I know both the coach's kids, one of them wrestles in college now, and one of them could wrestle in college. I think he's probably going to start wrestling again. That's my opinion. But what do you think you're going to, what is your, do you have everything mapped out? Do you know exactly like?
Not quite. I want to major in exercise science, but I'm still trying to figure out where I want to go. I have it narrowed down to 3 schools. Right now it's just a matter of what's going to be the cheapest for me.
Okay.
And so right now I'm waiting for FAFSA to come out, which isn't going to come out until mid-March, which is unfortunate. But that's basically all that I'm waiting on to make a decision. But I have it narrowed down to 3 schools. And if I do anything in college, it's most likely going to be running. I'm probably not going to wrestle just because I don't have that experience and like that success that I have in cross country.
So your cross country success,
Yeah.
how much did that help you in wrestling?
Well, it kept my cardio up. I mean, going straight from cross country season to wrestling season, I was able to, like, I guess, last longer during practice than what I would say probably most of the kids could, just because of how much endurance work that we do during cross country.
So this year, okay, so last wrestling season, you got injured. Were you able to run after that?
Not while I was able to run, but I had to wait a couple of months because it was still, like, with the lightheaded and dizziness, it wasn't safe for me.
Is cross country spring or fall?
Fall.
Fall. So did you?
I ran.
Did you run this fall?
I ran this fall. I've ran cross country all 4 years of high school without any sort of like issues or anything.
Got it.
It was, so I did cross country in the fall my junior year, joined the wrestling team. After Christmas, I couldn't wrestle anymore, and so, but that also meant that I couldn't do any sort of like winter or spring training for cross country at that time. So I had to wait until I think March or April is when I could finally start like running on my own again, because that's when I finally started to actually feel like better and I was getting like my color back and everything. And so
So, okay, I'm running. So wrestling will gas you. I mean,
yes.
Wrestling is,
yes.
I mean, there's, coach, we're doing like 1 minute periods, 1 minute 30 periods with little kids, but what are the periods in high school?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So 2 times 3. So the six longest minutes of your life. I feel like you going into wrestling, coming out of cross country, is a huge deal in terms of the stamina. 'Cause, I mean, there's some. Do some high school kids start wrestling, and like the ones that don't play any fall sports, do they come in and is there a discernible difference in their cardio?
There is. And the ones that are getting some good work in the off season or going to Perler programs like that, you can tell the ones that have been working. Yeah.
So, Coach, we kind of talked about Catherine and like kind of her accolades, and one thing that I do want to talk about is how wonderful your wife is. So, the Q&D tournaments, when you sign up as a wrestler, I think the fee to join wrestling is something this is kind of unheard of. The private wrestling club program fee is somewhere in the neighborhood of like $50. Okay, and the club's not trying to make money from doing that. And you've like over the years, people have tried to jack that fee up, and you always move it way, way down.
I like to fight it. I like to give all families an opportunity to come in and experience the sport. I feel like my job isn't so much as a coach as it is just trying to share, my personal love for the sport with as many people as possible. So if you can keep it as low as you can to help families, then that's what I try to do.
So for generally when a club decides to hold a wrestling tournament, which is a ton of work, It's a lot. So when you sign up for wrestling, the parents are kind of expected to, once a year, get up early in the morning on a Saturday or a Sunday and just do something for the club at the gym. Which, by the way, incoming information, I think champions may have finished second in team points. I just don't want to. I don't want any misinformation going out from this pod about where champions play. So champions is a very good club. So correction. Back to like tournaments and things like that. One of the things that we tell parents, we say, okay, so here's the deal. We're going to keep the fee at $50. If you want the fee to be like $700, you don't have to serve business and gravy for 3 hours 7 months from now or whatever it is. January 28th. I know. So this past, the two past tournaments we have are fundraisers for the club, for the school. It goes to reconditioning mats, keeping things clean, insurance, got to keep the lights on. I mean, stuff's not free, right? And I think when you've got a whole group of people coming together to build a tournament, do you remember the first tournament that you ran?
Not real. I mean, I kind of do, but it was hand in hand with one of our coaches in the past, which was Ken Mansell, who has run more tournaments than anybody I've ever been with. So
was this the 32nd year?
For the high school, yes.
For the high school.
And Ken had started the original tournament a year after I graduated.
I'm getting out my calculator because I'm not really good at doing this without a calculator.
You got to do something I never got to do, which was wrestling our own tournament, which I think is just super cool.
You did wrestle in the Notre Dame tournament?
I did.
So 32 years. I just did that. 1992 was the very first year. So do you remember Brandon Mast, Chris Costigan, and like Ryan Reese and Greg Vermelo and all these guys, John Leeson? Remember these names?
I remember all those names. I still see their young faces in my head when you call out the names.
It's really neat. So in 1992, I was a freshman in high school. It was my very first year. That was when Ken Mansell had the very first tournament 32 years ago. But I don't feel old. Not a big deal. What do you think the greatest thing about wrestling is? Like the number one, if you only had to pick one thing,
I don't think we have enough time, Frank.
What's one? Is it the greatest sport?
I believe it is.
Besides soccer and cross country?
There's a lot of great sports out there. I think wrestling's probably the best. I don't even know where to begin with it. I mean, like I said, going back to the original comment earlier, I just think for each person, it's what they get out of the sport, and a lot of it's just teaching you that, no matter what life hands you, you can overcome adversity. And wrestling is all about overcoming, adversity. It's a very humbling sport. So just when you think you're the top dog, somebody else can come along and show you that you're not as good as you think you are. So I just think you learn so much about yourself.
Would you copy that answer, or would you put a twist on it if I said, you could only pick one thing about wrestling, about why it's so great? Would you piggyback off that, or would you add something, or do you think Coach nailed it?
I think that he pretty much nailed it.
Of course he nailed it. He nailed it. You can't do any better. But so do you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, I also think like what he mentioned earlier about having like bad wins and good losses. I just think that like with wrestling, like every like opportunity you have to step on the mat is an opportunity to grow. Whether like you win or lose, like every single match you always are going to get something out of it. And so like there's always room for improvement.
You always get something out of it. And it's kind of like a metaphor for life, because sports are kind of a metaphor for life. Whenever you are watching other sports, running, when you've got a quarter mile left and you don't think you've got any gas in the tank, do you just drop, or do you run that quarter mile?
Well, no, that's how I became a regional champion.
Yeah! Woo! Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's the best soundbite I've ever heard. It reminds me of, you remember when Kanye West goes, what would it be? What would happen if I wouldn't have won this award? And then he goes, The world will never know, or something like that. It's like a really good song, but good job. Can I tell you about one of my experiences?
Yeah.
So I haven't told you this. Coach knows this story. I don't think your mom knows this story. You remember I was talking about Greg Bemberlow? Mm-hmm. So my freshman year, he was the 112 pounder, okay? And he weighed 110 pounds. He could eat whatever he wanted to eat, okay? But this is back when losing weight was like a thing. It's not as much of a thing anymore, okay? So if there's any parents thinking, oh, I don't want my kid to lose weight, or football players, oh, I'm trying to get him, as big as possible. I don't want him to lose weight, and I want to hear your answer to that. But can I tell you the story about the quarters?
Sure.
You know the story. So when I was a freshman, I think I had like 24 matches. I know that I had like 17 losses. Okay. I also got like sick, and I hadn't had the flu since I was a kid. And I got the flu pretty bad, to where I was weighing like 92 pounds generally. And so and I don't know what the minimum weight is for the lowest weight class. Do you know what that is?
I don't think there is one now.
Oh my gosh.
They've done away with it. So you could have avoided this whole story, but it's a good one.
Okay, so back in the 90s, back in the early 90s, like right after the Berlin Wall fell down, okay, I was told that I had to wrestle, right? Kind of against my will. The best decision that I've ever made. But you had to weigh 93 pounds in order to wrestle at 103. There was a rule. Mm-hmm. The lowest weight class was 103 pounds, and I weighed 92. So what I would do is I would drink a ton of water, a ton of Gatorade. I would eat and eat and eat in front of the other wrestlers who were not eating, okay? And that's why I don't have very many friends. So I'm a freshman, and I get really sick, and my weight drops down to 84 pounds. Freshman year, my son, who's in first grade, weighs 68 pounds. Valentino, he's in first grade. So I was teeny tiny. So Mansell said, Frank, terrible impersonation of Mansell. Frank, you're gonna wrestle 103. I go, okay. So it's a varsity spot. So I only earned it because I was on the team, and I didn't quit. And I'm just like the next guy, because Brendan Mast either can't make weight, or it's deer hunting season, whatever reason why he couldn't do it. Okay, maybe he was eating too many chili cheese Fritos. I have no idea, but the point was, I'm the guy now. So I explained to him that I weighed 84 pounds, and he looked at me and he goes, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "How much did you weigh?" Wait, no, hold on a second. So goes and looks at the sheet. He goes, "No, you weighed 92. I go, "No, coach, I just weighed myself." This is like before the internet, before like everything got fancy, like before we got flying cars. There was the scales used to have. Have you ever seen this? Do you guys have a scale? Well, you don't. Well, back when you wrestled,
the old
Abigail,
scale.
the old scales would sit like this, and as it would come up, it would kind of like.
Yeah, they have those at the Croc Center.
They do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Right under the TV, where they're playing news stations where they should be playing something else. And then when it goes up in the middle, the weight kind of moves up. Then you know that's where your weight is as you slide the bars across.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm explaining this well, but Coach Mansell told my mother to go to the bank and get about $50 worth of rolls of quarters. He convinced me to shove rolls of quarters in my socks and told me to wear as much clothing as I could. I wore 3 or 4 layers of sweatpants. I had bottled water stuffed in the pockets. I could only get up to like 92 and a half. So Greg Bemberlow is like, in John Leeson, they're like shoving water down me. I'm like, I can't drink any more water. Like, I'm going to puke. So somebody had the idea for me to cup my hands and put them in back of my back. You know this story. And Greg Bemberlow, when the ref was weighing us in, he was instructed, by the way, should I even be telling this story? What are the statute of law? Am I going to get arrested? Am I going to get fined?
It was 30 years ago, Frank. I think we're good.
Well, if IHSA hears this, are they going to call you up and say that you're getting fined like $17 or something? So he was pushing down on my hands. My hands are clasped behind my back. He's pushing down. And the bar is going dong, 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 dong. And the ref is like, what's going on? And then Mansell rips me off. He's like, okay, he's good. That's how I made weight.
Most kids try everything they can to lose weight. You did the opposite, trying to gain weight.
Yes. Yes. So I hope you enjoyed that story. So, Coach, what do you say to parents that say that wrestling's too dangerous? I don't want them to lose weight.
You don't need to lose weight. I didn't cut any weight. I just wrestled my body weight. So
There you go.
We believe in the kids. I weigh the kids first day of practice, so we try to keep them within one weight class of their natural body weight. It's too important these days to make sure that the kids are eating, able to focus on their grades. You don't want kids in the classrooms with their bellies rumbling, so.
But
Things have come a long way since we wrestled, Frank.
Okay, did you ever wear? Okay, can we say this? Can we say this publicly? You can kick me under the table too. Did you ever wear a garbage bag during class?
Not during class, but I've worn my share of them. Yes.
Is the urban legend about the weight loss center in the Steinkamp hot tub, are any of those rumors true?
They may be. I might have made copies of the house keys for all the captains and upperclassmen on the team. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever heard stories? Now this doesn't happen anymore, okay? And a lot has changed, and I don't think you can you don't really haze kids anymore. I remember I'm having to hang during soccer season. I remember having to hang from the crossbars, have the senior captains shoot rockets at my face.
I've heard of that
Kevin
before.
Myers' big foot kicks a soccer ball at you. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I like that you said that. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I've just heard my teachers mention stuff about how hazing isn't really a thing anymore, and one of my teachers mentioned that when he played soccer he had to hang from the soccer goal and get soccer balls kicked at him as a freshman. So
Yeah, all kinds of stuff would happen. And then on the bus, I can't even say some of the things, but it did make me better. And I don't think I'm one of those guys who had the hazing and got worse. I think it definitely made me better. When I went to college, went to a fraternity, the hazing that they gave me, I'm like, man, that's weak sauce. You've never been a Q&D Raider, never been on the wrestling team. But I'm glad that you got control over that, Coach, and that stuff doesn't really happen anymore, although maybe it should. As we kind of close down a little bit, this podcast is pretty much over. I've got, I might have a couple more things to say, but I'd be remiss if I didn't let you kind of say anything that you want to say about wrestling or the club, or how hopeful you are that your brother and I are going to hand deliver these unbelievable young wrestlers that are, have you seen, besides your brother, have you seen, well, your mom's, have you seen Alec Coronado or Xander McGee? The McGees, the Coronados, obviously the Genenbachers. Do you know what's so neat about even all of these different wrestling clubs that weren't around when I was a kid? Now, Coach Matthew Steinkamp, he, against his will, his father Wayne, dragged him to wrestling practice when he was in 6th grade, okay? And then when he was in 7th grade, it just so happened that one of his older brothers, named Jason, was a junior in high school. The reason why I know that is because I was a freshman, and you were gone.
I was gone.
You were gone. And this is 1991, and Coach Matthew Steinkamp was in 7th grade. And he may or may not have, after hours, not in an illegal situation, maybe learned some moves with some teammates, but the coach wasn't there. And Matthew got really good at wrestling, really good. And he's one of those guys, all the Steinkamps were good. It's you know how all the Genenbachers are just naturally awesome at stuff? That's how the Steinkamps are at wrestling and other things. But I can't believe that some of these kids have the juice so early. We already talked about how many kids are on the Q&D team. There's very good kids there's a great kid that Keith Oddie kid from Canton. You've got killers from Palmyra. You've got super good wrestlers coming out of Hannibal. Did I mention Camp Point? Payson is getting a little kids program. I think Mark Hickey is going to be taking that up.
Yep, Mark's done a great job the first 2 years of that program. He's working on building that. The whole area is, you can't throw a stone without hitting some good wrestling. Hannibal just won their first ever state title as a high school wrestling team. So, I mean, if you're a wrestling fan and you want to watch good wrestling, there's so many opportunities.
It's kind of crazy about how, like, the rise of MMA and UFC and things like that. You see all of the best fighters in the world. They all kind of started as wrestlers, the bulk of them. And then they learned jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying that Brazilian jiu-jitsu isn't in there, but you get, have you ever heard of, like, wrestlers walking into, like, a local Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym here in Quincy? And there's a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms that have opened up too. There's something happening. I don't know how combat sports and girls wrestling, how this became a thing. I don't know if it was COVID or if it was always going to happen. But the rise of it's really interesting. I do think MMA helped a little bit. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think the popularity of the UFC and MMA, and you throw in all the kids that are participating in jiu-jitsu. I get a lot of those that cross over to wrestling. It definitely helps popularize the sport. It's hard enough to understand the sport, so
it's one of those things where when you've got a wrestler and they learn jiu-jitsu, because wrestlers are probably better at I'm going to have some jiu-jitsu players that are going to come out of the woodwork and give me a bunch of hate mail for this, okay? But I'm going to tell you this. You take wrestlers who have never played jiu-jitsu, because that's what they're called, jiu-jitsu players, okay? Wrestlers go, and they walk into jiu-jitsu, and they're like, take my money, I want to learn this sport. And so they give them a white belt, okay? And then the sensei or coach or whatever they call them in jiu-jitsu, I'm not sure what. No disrespect, I just don't know what they're called. They go in there, and these wrestlers are killers, and they take everybody down. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You said you don't know jiu-jitsu. Like, oh, no, I'm a wrestler. Like, oh, you didn't say that. And so what happens is wrestlers, I'm telling you, this happens all over the place, all over the world, especially in the U.S. right now. Wrestlers are going into jiu-jitsu gyms, maybe 4, 5, 10 years of wrestling experience, taking down the jiu-jitsu players. But you know what happens when the jiu-jitsu guys get you on the ground? That's a different story. That's a different story. Because in wrestling, you don't want to pull somebody on your back, right? Mm-mm. Abigail, we are still trying to teach our kids, oh, no. Don't pull them on top of you. You're up by 5 points. This happened at regionals. 3 different kids pulled somebody on top of them. One of those kids learned how to do that in jiu-jitsu, because in jiu-jitsu, you can pull somebody into your guard, right? And execute your kimuras and your triangles. But it's really interesting how wrestling is and jiu-jitsu is morphing, and then you learn how to strike later, which, do you know how to strike? I'm not a striker.
No.
I wish I learned how to strike. You know what you can do? Let's do a crowdfunding, and we'll do some kind of like boxing thing where you do the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, and then we'll have Quincy MMA. No, that's too much. Listen, thank you so much. Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome
for coming out. You've taught me a lot. I coached for you a long time ago with the Quincy Cyclones. And thank you for building that. And thank you for all you've done. And you've been the wrestling coach for a long time. Do you know off the top of your head how many years you've coached approximately, ballpark?
It's been 23 seasons between both grade school and the high school level.
Oh my gosh, that's
Thanks
a lot.
for making me feel old, Frank.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Thank you for doing that. Abigail, thank you for being you. Thank you for being a role model for my daughter. So Alejandra Giesing knows about you, and I told her the story about you. And I told her during bedtime, I told her a story about, I like telling my kids stories at bedtime. Mm-hmm. And I specifically gave her this story last night, because I go, I'm going to have a podcast tomorrow. And she knows what that is. Oh, yeah. She's 9, and this is her 2nd or 3rd year wrestling. And she just now turned the corner. Just now. She goes, oh, sprawl. Oh, because I don't want them to get my legs, Dad. I'm like, that's right, babe. That's right. So thank you for doing what you did. So what you did was you did a lot of work, and now you're talking about it on a podcast, and now you're going to have tons and tons of people that are seeing you, what you did. You persevered, you fought, and you won. And you did a great job.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.